Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for this lovely turnout and for being here. Some of you probably know Chris and Ash already, but for those of you that don't, just a quick introduction from me. I was binge watching Ken Berry's videos last year throughout summer to keep me on track with carnivore, which was a challenge back then, and I think I'm getting over that now. Um, and they kept referencing Chris, um, Ken and Nisha, his wife, who I also watched. So I went and found Chris and very quickly fell in love with these two and just how authentic and charming and wholesome they are. And love Ash's music. I just love their honest approach to everything that they do. And they're great with trolls. I love the way they handle their trolls. They also talk quite a bit about the mental health aspect of this lifestyle, and they document their health journey. And both of them have been on quite an impressive health journey since they started the keto carnivore lifestyle. So we just thought it would be brilliant to bring them on, and thankfully they agreed, and ask them a bit more about how they get their inspiration for the incredible recipes they come up with, and to tell us a bit about their health journeys and how they're going. And if you guys have any questions, please, once they've introduced themselves and spoken a bit about their own process and journey with all of this, please raise your hands if you've got questions and we'll get through as many as we can. So over to you, Chris Nash. Lovely to have you here. So grateful and so looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to it for weeks. So please introduce yourselves.
Sure. Well, Maggie and Monique, thank you both very much for having us on here. When you reached out and said that you'd like to talk with us and just kind of connect and everything, we really appreciated that because I think for us, maybe one of the biggest elements of doing this whole thing, this YouTube channel that I run that we really sort of never expected to even have be a thing, but here we are. One of the biggest pieces of that has really surprised us has been just the community and the support that we all have within keto and carnivore communities, how great everybody is. And when you all reached out and wanted to talk to us, we were super excited just to make more friends. I've only ever been over on that side of the pond once for a touring thing I did a number of years back, and I loved my experience over in the UK. So I was always happy to make more friends over there. So we appreciate y'all reaching out. So for anyone who's not familiar, I am Chris Cooking Nashville, as I'm most known on YouTube. I started a keto diet and then went into a carnivore diet a number of years back. That would have been in 2020 and 2021. And I have lost, to this point, I've lost about 130 pounds. I was severely overweight. I was having a lot of issues with pain and just all kinds of health problems. Something that someone my age should never have expected to be in the midst of. I was almost 400 pounds and was just miserable. And I really didn't understand what was going on in my body. I had a severe carbohydrate addiction. And my parents actually ended up starting keto. And so my dad introduced me to Dr. Berry. And so I started watching his videos consistently and just picked up pieces of information that I kind of put into sort of the protocol that we ended up following. And Ash and I talked about it because she was struggling with health issues as well. We said, we've got to get this under control. At this point, it was 2020, and of course, as musicians, we lost everything. All of our jobs, our home, we literally had everything taken away because of the pandemic, and it's shutting down the music industry and the industries we had our day jobs in. So we basically ended up living in a tiny apartment and had no money and had no jobs and didn't know what we were going to do. And I ended up getting just a job as a security guard, just because it was the only thing that we could find. And we were just trying to stay afloat. And so we didn't really have anything else except our health to try to take back. And we didn't honestly know what we were going to do or how we were going to stay in Nashville, but our health was the one thing we could focus on. And by the grace of God, we ended up making it through, and we're still here and doing our thing. And we discovered a brand new lease on life with starting to take our health back with keto and carnivore. We did keto for a while, clean keto. And then I decided to try carnivore right before we got married because I wanted to try to lose a little extra weight for the wedding photos. and it was about 2 weeks. And she looked at me and she said, I don't know what's going on, but something about carnivore is different because you were waking up every day smiling. And as long as I've known you, I've never seen you do that. And within 2 to 3 weeks of doing carnivore the first time, I had what I would describe as a mental awakening, and I had the complete reversal of what I would say was like a dietary induced depression and anxiety. And I didn't even recognize it in myself, which is funny because I had a career in higher education and I've actually been trained in mental first aid and mental health, recognizing like symptoms of that. And so as soon as I got clear of it and I stopped and looked back at it, I realized I was showing all of the symptoms of depression and anxiety. And I had severe irritability and I couldn't think clearly. I had brain fog. I had all of this stuff and I didn't recognize it in the midst of it because it was so bad. But as soon as I got out of it, I recognized something changed. And I've told Ash, I think the last time I remember my brain feeling the way it does on carnivore, I was probably about 9 or 10 years old the last time I felt that way. And I just didn't recognize that this was happening to me slowly over time. So I went carnivore, she stayed keto. She does a lot better on keto than I do with the veggies, and you know, so we've kind of tailored that. And then I did not deal with my carbohydrate addiction. I was all pumped up for the carnivore thing, but I didn't have my mental perspective right. And after we got married, some carbs and various junk foods sort of crept back in my diet slowly, and I ended up falling victim to the addiction that I never dealt with. And I went back off the rails. I gained a whole bunch of weight back. Not all of it. Thankfully, there was about 40 pounds. I'd lost about 90 pounds at that point, and I'd gained back all of the 50, I guess, that I gained back. But I still had about 40 I never gained back, thankfully. And we finally were in a position we were ready to move into the townhome we now live in. And it was going to be a few months before we moved. We were on the waiting list. And I said, I've got to go back to doing carnivore because I'm feeling miserable. I can't go up and down the stairs. I'm not going to be able to help us move. It was time. And so I switched over to doing carnivore, and I knew what to do because I'd done it before, but I said, I've got to come up with a way to make this more stable. And so I started a YouTube channel because I wanted to document my journey on carnivore. And the thing that I realized, and not everyone is this way, but a thing that I realized for me was even if my goal would be eventually to be like meat, salt, and water, like super strict carnivore, and I don't know if it is or not, I'm on a journey to figure that out. But even if that was my goal, flipping a light switch and going from loving to cook and loving standard American diet foods and all this stuff over to meat, salt, and water overnight was not going to be a smart thing because I was treating addiction, and just going cold turkey and cutting yourself off from everything you've ever experienced, not just the food and the sugar and the whatever, but all the social aspects and the mental side of that, doing all of that overnight was not going to set me up for success. And some people can do that. I found that I couldn't because I went back off the rails trying to. And I decided I was going to start doing some carnivore recipes where I used really cool, fun carnivore ingredients, but I would try to come up with different ways, use my cooking experience and sort of my love of gastronomy and all of the chefs that I've always grown up watching, and figure out, well, how do I use techniques of classic trained chefs and how do I turn carnivore ingredients into things that they aren't normally, and just see what we can do. And then I thought, well, I'll share my health journey, and then I'll share my cooking stuff I'm doing, the recipes, and maybe I'll inspire a handful of people. I don't know. I just think it would be a cool thing. But more importantly, I'll have a community, even if it's 10 people, even if it's just family members, whatever it is. I'll have this YouTube channel where I have a community of people I'm trying to remain accountable to so that I'm not on this journey alone, because doing it alone is very difficult. And I'll have something documented where a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, I can look back and I can see the change in myself, so that on those days I'm struggling, I go back to the beginning of my channel and I look at those videos and I look at the shape of my face and I look at my skin and I look at my energy and I look at my attitude and I go, look how far you've come. Don't give up now. And that's what it was going to be for me. And so I started this whole thing. And I had a few people in the community that started taking notice of some of the stuff I was doing. And next thing I know, about a year and a half later, here we are, almost at 100,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. We're at 92,200 and some as of today. So we're pushing towards that 100,000 play button on YouTube. Just, you know, it's a vanity thing, but it's fun. I have hundreds of videos and I've got so many different recipes. I've got more ideas I'm working on, and I have an entire community full of people who talk about how these things are life changing, how these are things that have stabilized them and helped them approach the carnivore diet or helped them stay more stable when they've never been able to, or they're giving my recipes to things like their child who has autism that doesn't like substitute recipes, but they'll eat my pizza crust, and so they can get their kids on a lower carb diet, where they bring their standard American diet friends over and they feed them my carnivore mashed potatoes, and they say, this is amazing, maybe I can do carnivore too. And it has turned into a mission for me to make carnivore more fun and make it more accessible, so that even if we want to get to that meat, salt, water step eventually, which maybe we do, maybe we don't, but if we do, we can have a path to actually get there with things that don't take away all of our social things that we do with food and all of our enjoyment of spending time in the kitchen for people who like to cook, and all the creativity and just everything culturally that food means, so that if we want to move in the direction of being super healthy, we don't feel like we have to just cut out everything all at once. And it just makes it less scary for people who aren't quite sure if this is something they really want to do. And it's turned into an amazing calling for me. And I absolutely love getting to do this every day. And I love it so much that I actually, with a couple of weeks ago, quit my day job, and I am doing Chris Cooking Nashville. And Ash and I are musicians, and we're doing that and touring. And those are the things I'm doing full time. So we are here and doing this every single day. And you guys are actually the first thing we have done in the brand new YouTube studio with all the knives and
Yeah.
It's amazing. And you had your honeymoon finally as well, right?
We
yes,
did.
yes.
Yeah.
A couple months ago now, I guess that was.
Yeah.
We or I guess a month and a half, 2 months ago, whatever. We went on a cruise because we got married in the midst of a pandemic, and everything we tried to book honeymoon wise kept getting canceled. And we really didn't have any money to do anything fancy anyway, so we kind of were like, you know what, we're just gonna wait until the world settles down. And we figured before we dive into doing this full-time content creator and full-time musician lifestyle, we better go enjoy the honeymoon a little bit. So we took a cruise to the Bahamas and had our little hurrah before we jumped in here. So
Got lots of vitamin D. It was wonderful.
yes.
Great. And rest.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it was funny. You know, that when you and I were first talking, you said, you know, when you get ready to quit the day job, you know, you're gonna like probably sleep and your brain is gonna shut down
Yes.
before I even quit the day job, because I quit after I came back from the cruise, like came back and worked a few more weeks and got everything squared away before I actually quit. But on the cruise was the first time I think I've really just stopped and taken a break. My cell phone didn't even work because we didn't want to pay for any kind of a Wi-Fi plan. And for the first time, I didn't have anything I had to do or that I really could do to work. And I spent one day on the afternoon of one day pretty much just sleeping on some lounge chairs on the deck of the cruise ship. Like
Yeah.
it just, my whole body just shut down,
Shut
and it
down.
was amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you feel awesome the day after.
Yes, it was
Yeah,
fantastic. So
it usually happens to me too when I take a break.
yeah,
I
it
once
was
fell asleep for 5 hours in the boiling Caribbean sun on a beach. I was very lucky I didn't end up as red as a lobster.
yes, it's
I
amazing.
didn't.
It's fantastic. So, but yeah,
So,
that's me. So you want to talk about your music stuff and your involvement in all this craziness that I pulled you into?
Yeah, I think you pretty much already said most of it, but yeah, I guess I'm Mrs. Chris Cooking Nashville. I do not cook whatsoever, if anyone wonders. If you watch Chris's recipe videos, I'm always behind the camera. and then I get to taste the food. That's my job, and I take it very seriously. But yeah, and then on top of being Chris's wife and just kind of his partner in this YouTube world, I'm also a professional country artist and songwriter. And Chris is actually my lead guitar player and band leader. So we get to do YouTube and music together. And honestly, I think the reason why Chris and I are so willing to, come do things like this, and why we are so passionate about things like creating recipes and even just sharing our own health journeys, is because we were just in a really dark place. And for myself, I grew up with a very traumatic childhood, and my body was hanging on to a lot of different things, and I was never really taught that food is fuel. It's a treat, it's a reward. So growing up, I just had a very bad outlook on food and health and what that meant. And so I didn't really understand a lot of things. And so I was pretty thin most of my life. I'm a super tall lady. I'm 5'11", so I can always reach the top shelf. But yeah, and then, kind of just started to catch up with me though as I got older, especially being a musician. I was touring. I'd have a beer every night at a show. I'd, go through the drive-through. It was a lot of that kind of stuff. And so I gained a significant amount of weight in a very short amount of time. I also grew up in California. So for me, I was always told growing up that basically red meat is terrible and you shouldn't eat it. That's just what I was told. So when my husband came to me and said, hey, I want to do carnivore, or I want to do keto, I'm like, why? What do you mean? But it literally just took, like you said, 2 weeks and him smiling, and I totally bought into it.
Mhm.
And I've lost a little over 100 pounds today, being on basically meat heavy keto. I did try carnivore for a month, and a lot of my meals throughout the week are carnivore. And we feel great, and we've really just taken back our health. And because of all that we've been through, and just kind of knowing the mental health and the physical side of things and weight loss and just all of our different stories combined together.
Yeah.
That's why we're so passionate though about sitting here and like sharing with people and helping people. And I can't believe sometimes that this is our full-time job now. You know what I mean? And so we're just blessed, and so we just appreciate you guys having us and everyone for tuning in. But that's pretty much, I think, a good overview.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I have to add, I'm very blessed to have a woman that is so supportive as my wife. And I am very grateful that we get the chance to do this, because, when Ash and I started talking about this and how I was going to do this YouTube channel, I already was working multiple jobs at that point, because we were just trying to get back out of debt from 2020, and you just recover from everything that had happened to us. And so I was working multiple jobs. She was working, taking care of stuff at the house. Like we were just constantly overwhelmed with stuff to do. And I said I wanted to do this, and she was like, when are you going to have time to do a YouTube channel? And I said, I don't know, but I feel like I need to do this because, just one of the things that's really important for us on my channel is transparency. And everything we do, I will tell you. What we feel about everything, what we experience, I will tell you, because we're far from perfect and we're doing the best we can, but we need to show people what this journey is actually like. So when they decide to do this for themselves, they know what to expect. And they don't have expectations of perfection that no one can ever meet, and they don't beat themselves up if they don't achieve perfection. And so, we started doing this, and it became very apparent to me very quickly that I cared so much about people who try to do this and then they struggle and they don't know what they're doing and they feel like they can't do it right, and they beat themselves up because they're not doing it the right way. And Ash and I talked about this. I was the fat kid that made jokes about himself being overweight, because if you make a joke about it before somebody else can, it doesn't hurt so bad. And I would look in the mirror and I would absolutely hate everything that I saw, with the brain fog and the depression and the anxiety and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's the kind of stuff that leads towards feeling suicidal, overweight, way you feel about yourself. And it's, I've told Ash, like, I go into the comment section, and if someone wants to come on the channel and, insult people and be really, disrespectful about stuff, or if they get super dogmatic and they want to beat other people up for not doing it the way they think you should, I don't tolerate that. And I go back and forth with people. And it's not because I'm trying to argue or be rude to people, but it's like I remember being the guy who was overweight to the extent that I was searching for a solution. I was looking for hope, and I could not think clearly enough to read a comment like that and not have it ring in my head for the next 3 to 4 days. And it's like someone who tries to beat up the person who's overweight and struggling for being overweight and struggling. It's like taking a drug addict walking into a rehab center and insulting them and telling them just go shoot up again because you're not good enough anyway. I mean, it's an unbelievable amount of just callousness that can occur with a very small handful of people, but they're a very loud handful of people. And so one of the things that I really care about is letting people who are struggling and who are overweight and who are sick and who are honestly dying slowly and miserably like I was, letting them know you are not alone. You don't have to be perfect. And guess what? If you go off the rails and you gain 100 pounds back after you've lost all this, that's fine. You're still just as welcome here as everybody else because you need to be here more than ever because I was there too. And we care so much about people that struggle and that have health issues and just need some hope. And even if you don't do it the way I would do it, I don't care. I just want to see people live their best life and feel better and find hope and go on the journey to figure out how do you get better? How do you feel better? And along the way, what can we do to support you? So there's recipes and there's motivation and there's a whole lot of love and there's a little bit of science. And we just try to do everything we can to stand up for people who, quite honestly, aren't necessarily in a place mentally to stand up for themselves.
For themselves,
yeah. And you do a beautiful job of that. And I've just got a comment here from Jeanette saying that's what makes you such a wonderful person, Chris. And she also said, Ash, a little bit earlier in the chat, Ash, wow, your face has changed so much since you went carnivore too.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, I love the way you guys handle trolls. I think you're brilliant. I love the fact that you take every opportunity to take a troll and take the lemons and turn them into lemonade to then make a positive message out of that, to reach out to people, like you say, who are doing their best and might be put off by that. And I think it's brilliant. I think that's one of the reasons why you probably have amassed the following that you've got, because you're genuine and you're in it for the right reasons. And that really comes across.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
In the short time. So sorry, Maggie.
No, go on.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say one other thing that I love that you tend to defend yourself about, because people are attacking you for the fact that you're doing fancy things with carnivore and that you're not just doing, the lion diet, is that you made recently a chicken pasta recipe. I can't remember exactly what the sauce was, but it was one that reminded you of your childhood because you and your mum used to go and have it. And I could see and feel the emotion in you when you were eating that, and the fact it had taken you right back to childhood. And you were able to make those noodles carnivore so that you weren't compromising on your diet, but you were still getting that beautiful remembered experience of childhood and connection with your family. And I think that really sums up again a lot of what you guys are doing, which is, there's nothing virtuous about being super strict carnivore and saying you can't enjoy your food, when part of the joy of life is good food, isn't it? And the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. And I love that, you're getting that message out there. I think that's so important, because it's just going to open it up to more people and make more people capable of making this choice and healing themselves. So I think it's brilliant.
It's enough. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think the way that I've put this to a number of people, because you're right, it's funny. I was talking with my uncle. We were, my grandpa passed away here this last week and we were up there for the funeral. And so I was talking with my uncle who was there for the funeral. And, he was like, you sort of get it from both sides on your channel, because the carnivore police that think you shouldn't do the things you do are angry if you do anything fancier than a steak. But the plant-based, vegan, standard American diet, whoever on the other side that thinks low carb is a bad thing, well, they're angry at you because you're too far the other way. And so he's like, you kind of upset people on both sides. And I'm like, I'm totally okay with that. Like, I'm in a place mentally I can be fine with people being upset about what I do if they don't understand. And I can do the best I can to try to help them understand me. Before I just eventually block them before they, become a problem in the community. But I kind of get it from both sides. But the thing that I tell, like, especially the more dogmatic viewpoint carnivores is like, look, if steak, salt, water works for you, I think that's wonderful. And if you're happy that way, that's fantastic. And even if that is the ultimate health thing that every human being can do, which I'm not a doctor, so I don't necessarily know if it is or it's not. And I don't think it's my job to try to tell somebody else what they need to do with their life. But even if that's the ultimate, there are so many people that just can't do that right now. And, call it mental weakness or call it addiction or call it whatever it is you think it is, it doesn't change the fact that it's a real thing. And so, it's like, do you care more about proving you're the best carnivore, which there is no trophy for, or do you care more about helping people and saying, even if what you're doing isn't perfect, if it's 90% better than what you were doing, then that's a win. That's a huge deal. And it's like, there are millions, hundreds of millions, probably billions of people who are sick and dying. And if you want to slap them in the face with a steak, you're not going to help any of them. And then that's really just about your ego more than it is actually promoting anything. And so, I'm very vocal about this because there are so many people that need help, and the people that are really loud about if you don't eat meat, salt, water, then you're not. I've literally had someone say, if you don't eat meat, salt, water, you're not worthy of carnivore. And it's like, what? That doesn't even make any sense to me.
No.
No.
And you handled that one really well as well. You did a whole video around that, didn't you?
I appreciate that. The level of just crazy anger that has to be in somebody's life, I think, to do that is really sad. But it's like the people that really need help, that's the kind of stuff that turns them away from it. And they're like, well, I'm just going to go eat 10 bags of Doritos because now I feel even worse about myself.
Yeah, and what's the point? Yeah, and any progress is progress. And even if it takes someone 20 years to achieve optimal health, at least they're making steps towards that in their own way. And that's all that matters, isn't it?
Absolutely. I just hate seeing people maybe turned off by that. And so I try to give the alternate perspective. And, I think that what I've said to some people who, they talk about oh, it looks like my carnivore bread recipe. This is one that got a lot of it. People are like, well, if you're a carnivore, you shouldn't be trying to make things like bread and all this other kind of stuff. And it's like, I'm not saying that if you don't need it, you should start making it because it's somehow going to improve your carnivore diet. That's not the point. But for people that miss things like grilled cheese sandwich, because that's what they had 4 or 5 days a week, forever, to get them from where they are to where they're trying to be, there might be a gap in the middle. And this might be the thing that helps them do it. And, it's like, if you look at my egg white bread recipe that I came out, which is whipped egg whites and egg white powder, which is just freeze-dried egg whites. And there's some heavy cream. And there's beef gelatin, which is just ground up beef collagen, like the connective tissue. And it's like, so this is all stuff that's really good for us. And it's like, if you look at that and it looks like bread to you, so you immediately have a knee-jerk reaction that, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. Is that me that has the addiction, or is that you that has the addiction because you can't see what it actually is rather than it is in your mind? And so it's like, between the two of us, pretty sure I'm the one that's got that stability in the addiction center sort of more figured out there. And that's okay. If it triggers you and you don't want to eat it, that's totally fine. I get that, but it's just a weird perspective. And so we try to let people know, it's okay. If you want to have some fun and this helps you stay healthier, do it. And if you don't need to, don't add it in, just add it in. But if this helps you, there.
Yeah, so that was actually going to be my question to you. It's like Maggie and I were talking just before the show, and saying I personally I can't be bothered to do a lot of fancy stuff, right? I mean, I used to cook, with vegetables and peeled potatoes, and you've got, so much work, and there's nothing better than just get some good pork and put it in a pan and just fry it in a load of butter and eat it, right? So personally, I don't really, because I've never eaten so easily. How is that for you two during the week on an ordinary day? Do you do the fancy stuff, or do you just keep it simple?
Right. So most nights of the week, last night would be a great example.
Yeah.
Last night we were out all day yesterday getting Ash a new phone because her phone was acting up, and we live on our phones, especially when we're on tour, and we use them for everything, including the YouTube channel. So we're out all day dealing with that. We come back, it's like, I don't have anything planned for dinner because I know what I'm filming this week and I've got that stuff, but I don't have anything planned for dinner. So we swung by the grocery store on the way home and I got 3 pounds of ground beef and I fired up a little miniature grill I'm actually going to be doing a review video of that they sent to me. And I did 3 1-pound burger patties, like great big thick ground beef burger patties on the grill. And I brought them in, and Ash was feeling like a little bit more of a keto type night. So I made her a few veggies to go along with her ground beef. Some days, she's more keto, and some days she's more carnivore. And so she had one burger patty and some veggies, and I had 2 burger patties. And that's what we ate. And we called it a night. And we only had one meal yesterday, to sit down and do that. So that was what we do. That's what a lot of nights of the week look like, whether it's salmon or pork chops or steaks or beef patties or whatever. Because it's good stuff, and you can be just as skilled cooking those things as you can whatever. The fancier stuff I do, I'll do, of course, my recipe video every week. Whatever I'm cooking in that recipe video, that's what we have for dinner. And if I don't sit down and enjoy it for dinner, I don't post the video, which is why it's like all my recipes, if you do them right, should taste good, because I'm pretty good at knowing good food versus not good food. And if I'm willing to eat it for dinner, I think most people would be. So we usually do at least once a week for that. And then the only other time that I really do fancier stuff is sometimes I will do, whether I'm experimenting with a different recipe or I'm trying a new technique or something like that, I'll experiment and I'll make it almost like a small test portion or like a side dish or something to something else we're having. The only time that I'm doing lots of fancy stuff is if I either have multiple recipe ideas that I'm trying to experiment with all at the same time, or if I'm having a difficult time getting a particular one to work, because then I'm doing it day after day after day. So like the carnivore bread recipe is a really good example of this. I started figuring out how I wanted to do a carnivore bread recipe about a year ago. I started working on that. And, I've had lots of requests for my version of like an egg white bread. And all credit to all the creators out there who have made egg white breads before me. I've learned a lot by watching them. I just didn't care for the recipes the way they turned out. I thought, this is cool. This is halfway to where I really would want it to be for me to enjoy eating it. And I know other people like it, and that's great. It just wasn't my personal taste. And so I thought, I want to take this. I want to go the rest of the way with it to where I'm happy. And then I'll just keep refining it from there. And it started this whole process about a year ago of me experimenting with this. And for probably the first 3 to 4 months of that, I was just watching videos by other people doing various breads. And honestly, not even just people in the keto and carnivore world. I'm watching like weird things like vintage baking and all this kind of stuff, trying to figure out what sorts of techniques can you use. And then it was probably 4 months ago, 5 months ago, I guess, I came across a video of a cake that was made with egg whites being whipped instead of the standard flour, and then baking powder concept. And so I thought, okay, well, kind of a cool concept. What do I do if I replace the flour that's used in this and I replace the sugar and like all the stuff that makes this a cake? How could I turn this into a bread? Because it did have whipped egg whites. And so I started experimenting with that, and I made 2 or 3 different versions of that before we finally were okay with the result. And then I sort of refined it a little bit more. That's when we filmed the video, and it turned out great. And then off of the back of that, I've made 3 or 4 other different things between videos and live streams where I've used that recipe and used it for different things or tweaked it. And I'm still working on a new list of ideas I have with that. So a recipe like that, that's really, it's not complicated once you learn to make it the first time, but getting to that point can be a long process. That ends up making me do fancy stuff a lot of nights of the week.
Yeah.
Your French toast looked amazing. I was drooling.
So good.
Yeah, for sure. I would like to say too, I guess some perspective that maybe a lot of people, that watch Chris's YouTube channel don't get to see, but me being his wife, I get to see all the time. Something that you should know about Chris is like, we clearly with our busy schedule, we do, like you said, eat very simply throughout the week. For me, when we started doing that, I was so happy because I don't cook, but I do the dishes. And when you just you sear some steaks in a pan, or like you said, just put it in a pan with butter, it's like there's hardly any clean, and when we also felt like, I mean, you feel better, you look good, you lose weight. I'm like, this is just a win. So we love eating simply. But the thing about Chris, and you hear him talk about thinking about bread recipes and stuff, and this is what I think people maybe don't understand, but I think this is why his recipes affect so many people. How Chris shows love is by cooking.
Love language.
Always can tell if Chris really likes somebody, because the first thing he'll say to me is, we should have them over for dinner. I remember like a story so we had just met. We weren't even like, officially dating or anything yet. And I had gotten really sick. I think it was with like the flu or something. Mm-hmm. And he was going to come over and he's like, can I bring you anything? And I said, chicken noodle soup. Now, to me, I think, you get the little red and white Campbell's can from the grocery store and you come home and you heat it up in a saucepan, and that's all I wanted. He shows up a couple hours later with this big thing of homemade chicken noodle soup. And I opened the door and he's standing there with this big thing. And I'm like, you could have just bought in a can. And he goes, you can't eat that stuff. No. And so, but like, that's what I've learned. It's like, just, he shows love to people through cooking. And so when someone comes to him and says, my autistic grandchild needs to eat lower carb, or, I'm sick and I'm struggling with this, can you make a substitute for pizza, chicken nugget, pasta? Doesn't matter what it is. It's like, if I can make this and make it to the best of my ability to where it does taste as close as it can to the real thing, I can help save someone's life. I can love people for creating it. So I see Chris sometimes, like in the middle of the night, he'll be like watching videos on how to make these weird cakes that I've never heard of. And, he will come in the kitchen. Like sometimes I'll be working on something and I'll come downstairs and he's in the kitchen and he's like, I'm like, it's 2 PM. You're supposed to be napping or something. And he's like, no. He's trying to make ravioli or something, something. And he's like, does it taste right? But I just think people don't understand. I think that's really just how he shows love. And that's when you're watching his videos and when he's sharing information with you and then he's showing you how to create it, that's where it all comes from. And when the camera comes off, it's still the same thing. I always said, he's cooked every meal pretty much I've eaten in the past 6 years, and I've never had a bad one. Yeah, but he just shows love, and we constantly have people over at our home, even that are standard American diet, all the time. And we constantly have people in our home. We always say our door's always open, and we bring them in, and we grill them up steaks or stuff. Or a lot of people want to try like carnivore mashed potatoes, and so we're able to bring people in no matter what their diet preference is, and just share our food, share our table. Yep. We don't push things on people, but we share our story. We share, why we eat this way, what we do. So I think that's just a big part that a lot of people don't see, on the YouTube channel, but I look at them every day and I'm like, whoo, you go, boy.
Yeah.
You're lucky girl.
And that love does come across. It translates, and that's probably why you have people who keep on watching, like me. We've got a few comments, if that's all right, folks, just to catch you up on what people are saying. I don't know if you can see that at your end, but we've got Valerie saying, I watched Chris's first ever video and can see how he's on target with his initial goals. So well done, Chris. And then we've got Jeanette, who says, it sounds like all the vegans trying to mimic the meat products they used to eat, which is great. I mean, that's, spot on. And then she says her addiction still needs to be worked on, but your recipes make it possible in the future to invite friends and sons with family over to eat without them thinking I'm crazy. Mm-hmm. Valerie then says, I usually just use recipes as a guide and for ingredients, proportions, etc. So looking forward to watching more of Chris's videos. Also love the food tasting sessions. Lewis says, I'm interested to know if Chris uses grass-fed beef, as my experience in the US is that grain-fed beef predominates. Also, does he source non-farm raised salmon?
Yeah, good question. So grass-fed beef and wild-caught salmon are probably twice the price of grain-fed beef and farmed salmon. If possible, yes. but I also look at things in shades of gray sometimes, because ideally eating grass-fed beef and wild-caught salmon would be ideal for us, because I think just health benefit wise, that's the peak of what we can do. The reality is I also have to pay my bills on a monthly basis, especially as a YouTuber, because I'm kind of at the mercy of the video performance and the people in my Patreon group that support the work we do. And I have to be responsible with that, and saying like, okay, well, I'm going to insist on the ultimate best of the best version of everything for myself at the expense of my ability to do the things that help so many other people. I have a hard time making that okay if I feel like it's going to make it difficult for me to then do all the other things I need to do and pay my bills at the end of the month. So it's really a thing of I do the best I can, I get it when I can, but I also try to be responsible with the resources I'm given. And I look at what I'm doing is 99% of the way there compared to what I used to do. And that last 1% of going grain fed to grass fed 100% of the time is, if possible, yes. But if not possible, I also don't sweat it. So
It's
Good
the
answer.
smart way to do it, right?
mhm.
So we've also had Valerie say that she's made a playlist of your carnivore versions of her family and personal favorites to try out. That's great.
Awesome.
And before I invite anyone else, or we invite anyone else to answer their questions, I have one for you folks. And I just want to know, it's a bit of a fun one, but firstly, what's your most successful recipe? And secondly, what's your favorite, your personal favorite, if they're not different?
Most
Yeah.
successful.
Most successful, I would say there's three recipes that I would call most successful based on which metric you're looking at. So the most viewed video I have is my carnivore pizza crust. That one just it just has taken off, and that is like over 300 some thousand views, I think, on that one. So that's my most viewed video. I would say my most creative recipe that has made the biggest splash on people that have seen it, tried it, talked about it, whatever, is my carnivore mashed potatoes. Because no one that I know in the entire world ever, anywhere, had ever done anything like that before I did it. I'd seen carnivore pizza, I'd seen, these other kinds of things. I'd never even seen anyone attempt carnivore mashed potatoes. And I was like, this isn't a thing, but I'm going to make it a thing. So that was kind of just a completely off the wall thing, which sort of led me down a path of doing off the wall ingredient recipes. And then my fastest moving video, for the amount of time that it was, that seemed to like make people go wild just from the very moment I released it, was my carnivore bread, because I think everyone had been expecting for me to do something like that for so long that just everyone latched on and was like, oh my gosh. And I've gotten so many pictures and comments from people who have made it and say this is the most amazing egg white bread recipe I've tried. Like, I've tried them all, and this one is way better than the other ones I've tried, whatever. I've gotten just a lot of compliments on that one. So that's, depending on which metric, those are kind of the three that have really, made that biggest impact. I honestly think my favorite recipe, I actually haven't released yet, which is coming this next Saturday. So we're actually, later on today, we are filming a pasta that I have a new way of making spaghetti noodles, which, if anyone has seen my ramen noodle video from a couple of weeks ago, it's the modified version of that I've promised people. And we're gonna do I'm gonna do like a keto spaghetti and meatballs. And you could, of course, you can do any kind of carnivore type, sauce with this, because the noodles are carnivore. So if you want to do an Alfredo, or you want to do just a browned butter, or whatever you would want to do, it is a carnivore noodle. And then I'm actually going to do a shout out to my grandpa who passed away, and I'm going to do a carnivore version of Cincinnati style chili, which is part of my heritage where I come from. Skyline chili is the most famous of those. And it's sort of like a Greek spiced type chili with cheddar cheese that is served over pasta. And it's a thing, if you don't come from the area that I do, you may have never heard of it, because it is a very regional thing. But it was one of my grandpa's favorite things. And, we talk about transparency. I think this is a good example. When we were up there in Indiana for his funeral, Skyline chili is what they served after the funeral because it was his favorite things. And my parents are friends with a guy who owns a franchise, and, they went to school with him. So he did the catering and, to help out and everything. So for my grandpa's funeral, we had Skyline chili, and his favorite thing in the entire world drink wise was chocolate milkshakes. And so we ate Skyline chili and we toasted him with chocolate milkshakes as a send off. And it was just a little tiny chocolate milkshake about this big. And I had Skyline chili with real pasta, and I felt awful.
Oh,
So bad.
Awful. We
So bad.
felt terrible. But the thing is, I knew I was going to feel terrible. I totally got it. And it was an intentional choice because I was like, in this moment right now, honoring my grandfather's memory is more important than anything this food could ever do to me. And it is what it is in that situation. I didn't have any control over what was served that day anyway. And it was important for me to care more about my head and my heart than to care about my gut on that one particular occasion. So it was a necessary thing.
We also don't want to take away any attention
Right.
from honoring his memory. Like, oh, we don't eat pasta.
I can't do that.
Like,
That's carbs.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
like,
not the place and time for that for us. But it's a great example of, okay, here's something culturally very important. But if I had a moment where, like, let's say it was just the family all sitting down and we were going to do that, and I had the option of, okay, we have pasta for the standard American diet folks over here. I have the time to go ahead and make this pasta that I have. I can have the moment of remembering him and honoring that without making my gut feel bad.
Without suffering. Yeah.
And it is interesting, the longer you are on this journey of eating cleaner, the faster those reactions come, right?
You're not
Those
wrong.
physical, like literally within sometimes 10 minutes, you've eaten something that's not right.
Absolutely. I ate the pasta and we toasted with the milkshake, and it was about 20-30 minutes later, I literally had to get up from the table and sit down on a couch, and I looked at her and I said, I'm sorry, my blood sugar is just crazy right now. I was 100 degrees. I was like super sweaty and hot. My stomach did not feel good. I felt lightheaded, like all this kind of stuff. And that's okay. I know what's going to happen to me because that's what happens when I have things like that. And like I said, that was for me, that was an intentional choice in that moment that was important, but it's a really good example of why I feel like my recipes are so helpful, because even if I eat them, if I was not running a YouTube channel, I would probably eat a recipe like that once, 2, maybe 3 times a month at max, right? Because you're right, it's not necessarily worth it to do it every single day unless that's really something you like or it's important to you. But on the rare occasion where there would be a situation like that, that would be a super helpful thing. And so, like, I'm going to do that recipe with several versions of this new pasta this coming Saturday. I'm very excited about it because this is the closest thing to spaghetti noodles that I have ever seen. I mean, this beats out all of my other pasta recipes that I thought were really good. This beats all of them, and by a long shot.
It does.
It really is great. So I'm going to have several different versions of that pasta recipe coming this Saturday, and that is definitely going to be my personal favorite of my recipes I've created because it's just so much better than all the other versions I've ever done.
Yeah, my friend.
Wonderful.
I don't think I can pick a favorite recipe of Chris's because I get to taste like the test batches where I'm like, no, not quite. Go work on that more. But I feel like probably my recent favorite is actually probably your carnivore bread. I personally just never really cared for any of the other carnivore keto breads out there.
By not cared, she means she spits them out and says what. People who say she likes my recipes just because she's my wife and she's just going to say good things. No, you haven't seen all the stuff that she spit out when it's an experiment. And I'm like, what do you think? No.
Yeah. I like eating eggs if it's just like eggs by itself.
Yeah.
Great, no problem. I just don't like things that try to pretend to be other things. And when they still taste like an egg or something, I'm just like, I'm not going to say that's bread, that's an egg. I really enjoyed his bread recipe though, because I haven't been able to have bread in like years. And his bread I love. And because of that though, you have all these offshoots. Like we were able to have hot dogs and have hot dog buns, and they were delicious. Hamburger buns, we've had French toast. I think another one of my favorite is probably your pancakes. I will say, if you guys want to know the weirdest recipe though, because if you watch Chris's channel, sometimes he starts to do things with food and you're like, how's that gonna work?
Like chucking in the shrimp and the chicken into the pasta and things like that. Yeah.
Kind of weird, but I'm just like, okay.
And sometimes I don't let her taste any of the experiments until I get it finalized, so that she gets a cold reaction.
Yeah, which is good. Like I like that, because if I don't like it, I will say like, no. But I remember one time we were filming and it was your refried bean recipe. So I'm from California. Mexican food is a huge part of my heritage. And he was like, yeah, refried beans. I'm like, let's go. He puts bologna in a blender. And I said, I'm out. Never seen it. He literally is like putting bologna all in a blender. And I was like, no.
What are you doing?
No. I'm like, this is a bad idea. I don't know who told you to do that. No. And he's like, it will work. And sure enough, it's really good. And that's also now one of my favorite recipes that you make. I just can't think about it being bologna in a blender, because that's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's also a really popular one with your community, isn't it? Because I see people talking about it all the time in your comments. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you, guys. So, Monique, is it time for us to ask if people have questions, do you think?
Absolutely.
You're muted, Miller.
Yes, we have 20 minutes. So anybody?
We've got one from Valerie in the chat, and she says, how do you deal with eating out, Chris?
Good question. So there's a couple of things I do. Number one, research the menu of where you're supposed to be eating out before you go, so you don't end up, sitting there hungry and lost. The second thing is, if you're going someplace and it's the social aspect is what's really going on, it's not about the food so much. I pregame, so I eat ground beef, eggs, beef jerky, whatever it is at home before I go. And I can either just not eat, or I can just get something small that, I can eat just a little bit to kind of partake in the social activity. And then the third thing, honestly, that I do is, if I end up somewhere and I can't eat perfect carnivore, it's like, I'm going to do the best I can, try not to overdo it, try not to overeat, whatever it is, stay as keto as I can. And then when I go home, I put a whole bunch of eggs on top of it and fill myself up if I need to. And it's that shades of gray thing. You do the best you can, and either plan ahead or just deal with it in the moment the best you can, and try not to freak out about it, because if you don't make it a big deal, nobody else will make it a big deal.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not the Catholic Church, right?
Right.
So anyone else have any questions, please? Pop your hand up, or you can pop it in the chat if you'd rather not speak. Anyone?
Oh, everybody's gone shy.
Oh, okay. Well, while we're waiting for everyone else to find a voice, I did have another question. I wanted to mention that we had prepped everybody for a potential song, and just to say to everybody, the reason that the song hasn't happened yet is because the mic wasn't working terribly well. So off the back of that, my next question was going to be, and you don't have to answer this yet, of course, would you consider maybe coming back and doing a cookery show with us and playing a song one day?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to be able to do that. And we're in the middle of trying to figure out, live streaming is such a difficult thing to do musically, because for everyone out there who doesn't deal with sound equipment on a daily basis like we do, the programs, Zoom or FaceTime, or the stuff like StreamYard or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or YouTube, like any of these things, they compress sound so that when everybody else gets it, it sounds kind of a normal level to them. But the problem is, when you take little tiny microphones on things like computers and iPhones and whatever, and you put a whole bunch of music through it with a guitar and especially a loud vocal, which I sing loud. So, when you start doing that, the program freaks out and it tries to compress it all down, and what it'll do is just shut it off. And so basically you get so much sound that it doesn't know what to do with it. So we're still figuring out, okay, as musicians, when we're live streaming, what's the best way to get you all an actual decent experience so that you're not just hearing us cut in and out constantly. So we will address that, and we would love to come back and share our music stuff as well. In the meantime, you can go to ashtaylor.com, which is her website, just Ash, like it sounds, ASH, Taylor, TAYLOR.com. She has links to everywhere we're going to be touring. She has links to her social media. We're doing videos. She just released a new single called Cigarette. You guys should go listen to. It's super fun. And we're working on a music video we're going to be filming on Wednesday for that. Like, we've got a whole bunch of stuff that she's doing, and you can hear her singing and playing guitar. You can hear me playing guitar and doing background vocals, and you can find both of us in any way. So in the meantime, you can go listen to some of our stuff there, and we'll be glad to come back and play.
Yeah.
Lovely. I have to say, Stuck on Indiana made me cry because it was just such an example of how cute you two are and what a beautiful connection you've got. So yeah, I'm getting emotional just saying that. But yeah, really gorgeous music, guys. Go and listen to Ash. She's fantastic.
Thank you.
We have another question.
Yeah.
So we've got Jeanette saying that look on things makes it a lot more relaxed to eat this way. And then we have Serena saying, do you guys drink any alcohol?
Good question. Good question.
So again, we're all about honesty. We're all about transparency here. I actually really found that I have struggled with alcohol most of my adult life. I was drinking, not like getting drunk, but I would basically put in my, early mid-20s, as I was touring and doing all this stuff, I would drink energy drinks, about 3 to 4 of them every day. And then I would sip coffee throughout the day. And then at night, I would be so worked up that I would essentially, just to numb myself, I would come home and I would immediately pop open a drink. And I drank alcohol every day, on top of a terrible, terrible diet. And I thought that that was normal, especially being a musician. It's very common that, people buy you drinks, and it's a very social thing and whatever. I also have a very long history of alcoholics on both sides of my family. And so when I started doing keto, I quit drinking, and I never felt better. I did not realize it causes me to have a lot of anxiety. It causes a lot of brain fog. I went about 2 years sober, and one day for a special family occasion, my brothers were over here, and I had, when I say like a sip, I mean a sip of champagne.
Mm-hmm.
And for 3 days, I was curled up in a ball, and I could not think straight. My anxiety was so high. I'm a very calm, kind of laid back kind of person. I was not myself in any way, shape, or form. And so I told Chris, I said, for me, if I have maybe a little extra carbs, or if I have veggies, if some days I'm more keto, my body seems to actually handle that way better than maybe Chris will.
Yeah.
But I cannot touch alcohol. And that's just the cold hard truth. So I have really had to address that, and especially address the issues. And I find myself a lot happier, healthier version, and really kind of figured out, for me, from the mental health side of things, like, why do I feel like I need to drink? Why do I feel like, what is wrong that I feel like that's a thing? So I've had to face a lot of demons and stuff. But yeah, I personally do no longer drink alcohol. And, I still go to bars. I'm not tempted in any way, shape, or form. Just like a plate of pasta, I look at it and I go, I know if I drink this, how I'm going to feel. And I'm definitely not the best version of myself when I have this thing. So I just stay clear of it. But, a lot of my musician friends, they still do drink. And that's totally okay. But they've also seen a huge change in me, whether it be in my mental health, whether it be in weight loss, whether it be in my appearance. When your body isn't as, inflamed, you perform a lot better, right? So there's a lot of things where they've actually taken notice, and I've actually been able to encourage other people around me, other musicians, to actually quit drinking. So if not, at least cut back. So I do not touch alcohol though whatsoever.
Yeah. I can handle alcohol a lot better than she can. It's funny, she can handle veggies and carbs way better than I can, but I can handle alcohol a lot better than she can. I very rarely have anything. If I do have something, it would be like I enjoy like a beer. I enjoy a glass of wine. I've been drunk twice in my life. Neither is time that I'm proud of, and neither was a good experience. But the thing is, I handle alcohol the same way I handle medication, and I get this from my dad. It takes a lot to have an effect on me. So when you're 45 minutes in and 13 shots of tequila deep, and you're just kind of like, I'm a little tired. Like that's a massive amount in a short amount of time for no more effect than I got from it when I did that. And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to bed. My roommate at the time had done the same thing, and he had his head in the toilet. So like I handle alcohol super well. I also have a very addictive personality with my issues with carbs and soda and all these things I used to be addicted to. I don't need to add alcohol to that list because that's a bad one when you get that addiction to try to get rid of. And I have alcoholics just like her on all sides of my family. And I'm just like, like one or two drinks a year is good for me if there's a special reason I'm doing it. And other than that, I just steer clear of it because I just see so much potential for issue for me.
Yeah. We've got Marion saying it would be amazing if someone opened a non-alcoholic restaurant or bar. And we've got Jeanette saying alcohol is her challenge too, to numb the stress from day-to-day life.
Yeah.
We have got Marion saying all sounds amazing. Yum, hubby is going to be busy in the kitchen, lol. Valerie loves that song too. I'm assuming you mean Stuck on Indiana, Valerie.
Oh, thank you, Valerie.
Yeah. And Jeanette says, and if Jeremy, who's the doctor who created this protocol, if Jeremy organizes his USA edition of Ambleside in Tennessee, will you guys pretty please be there too? So Jeremy is moving over to Tennessee as soon as he can. And his business partner, who's part of the leadership team, John Gusty, lives there already, and he's actually quite keen to meet you guys at some point. So you're going to be next door neighbours soon, and the next big event, the next big live event is going to be in the Lake District here, the first weekend of August. But the next big one after that will be based in Tennessee. So I think everybody wants to know if you guys would be up for coming along to that. A little bit early days, but still.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Trish says, excellent conversation, and I'm interested in making the carnivore bread. And Helen O'Connor says, non-alcoholic bars are called coffee shops. Very true. Very true.
Not wrong.
Love it.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I will say while people are maybe asking questions, if anyone tries a recipe of mine, and if you have any issues, if it doesn't work, if there's something about it that doesn't seem right, make a comment on the video letting me know what went wrong. Send me a message on Facebook, send me a message on Instagram, whatever you got to do. You can email me at my website, which is just chriscookingnashville.com. Contact me, because even having pushing close to 100,000 subscribers, I still respond to every comment on every social media I have personally. It's a full-time job. I do that because I don't want you to dislike a recipe because it didn't go right, or because something, maybe you accidentally did something wrong, measured wrong, or if I can help you tweak it, because cooking is an art. It's not always a science. And, there's a little bit of finagling that has to be done. So if you have trouble, reach out to me. Let me know. I'm more than happy to help, because that's what we're here is service and helping people. So please let me know. I'm happy to help you.
Bless you. We've got Valerie saying, we'll all be invading Tennessee now. And then Jeanette saying, oh, I can just imagine Jeremy and Chris kicking it off cooking wise, because Jeremy's a big foodie and he loves cooking.
Okay.
So you're going to bond over that. And Marion saying, subscribe to both and looking forward to watching and listening to everything later. And Trish says, are they on any channel other than Facebook and Instagram? Yes, YouTube. But I don't know, guys, if there's more to it than that.
Yeah,
YouTube and web. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, no, you're okay. My main three platforms you can find me on are YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And then, of course, my website, chriscookingnashville.com. Ash is on basically every social media because she's a musician. She has to be everywhere. So she is on every social media. It's either Ash Taylor Music or Ash Taylor Country. You'll find the picture of her looking absolutely fabulous and gorgeous in all of them.
Good hair and makeup days.
Yes, and
always gorgeous, Ash.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Janet is saying Patreon is a good place too. That's presumably how people can support you financially, right?
Yes. I have a Patreon group. I think Ash is working on kind of growing her Patreon as well, but truthfully, it all goes to the same bank account, so whatever. But yes, if you want to support us, any of my videos you can find in the description box on YouTube. I have a Patreon link. I have YouTube memberships. I have a buy me a coffee link if you want to just make a one-time donation there. I have Amazon links, so if you shop online and do Amazon stuff, you can click on that, and then whatever purchases you make, we get just a little tiny few pennies commission, but every little bit helps. There's all kinds of ways to support us, and if you are looking for others, you can always just reach out to us, and I'm happy to do it because I'll admit it does get expensive doing all the experiments that we do, and especially doing this as a full-time job now, we have to really try to grow things, and the more resources we have, the more stuff I get to do for everybody. So
The more fun recipes that come out of the kitchen.
that's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anybody, any more questions? Anything you'd like to know before we say goodbye to everybody?
So while we're
Everyone's
waiting
good.
somebody else to say something, I just wanted to say that your chocolate egg pudding recipe is one of my husband's favorites. He is slowly transitioning from keto over to carnivore after seeing a change.
That's awesome.
And he's just been away camping with his boys for the last 3 days, and he's come back and he's very excited that I'm making the chocolate egg pudding tonight. Thank you. Thank you from him.
Yeah, that's great. My younger brother used to live with us and had his wisdom teeth taken out, and he is a total standard American diet. But Chris made him that chocolate egg pudding when his teeth were taken out, and it is his favorite dessert too. He literally, like, for his birthday has asked Chris, can you make me more of that egg pudding? Like, what is that? Like,
did he get through the entire amount that Chris made him in one afternoon?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And again, that's such the cool thing is, like, my brother's standard American diet, and he can't get enough of that egg pudding, and it's like we're just helping him take his carb count and just bring it all the way down. But right. Yeah, so it's really cool, and he's like, I had no idea this was health food. That's what he calls it, health food. He's like, but yeah, it's cool to see though, his reaction to it. Yeah. So
yeah, love it. So Jeanette's saying Patreon is a good place to find you as well, and she said she loved this, Chris and Ash. It feels like really meeting you now with a big heart. Your brother is fun to watch when he tastes things. I'll second that.
He's funny.
He says things like, I'm so glad you married my sister, dude. What beautiful people, says Serena. Amazing energies. Thank you both, with lots of praying hands. I think you've been a hit, guys.
Well,
yes.
We did something.
Awesome.
So yeah, really, really grateful to you both for being here, and thank you everybody for showing up. Just one last chance for anyone to offer a question or say anything before we round off. Anyone?
Nope.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Valerie says, thanks for being here with us, Chris and Ash, and for answering our questions. Look forward to your cooking tutorial. Felicity says, awesome. Meg Clippingdale says, thank you for sharing and inspiring. And Felicity says, thanks.
Well, thank you guys very much. We just love you guys, and we love just getting to do stuff like this, meet people. I honestly too, everyone being involved in the group here, we were looking over like all the protocols and all the different things that are all laid out for people in such a usable way. What you guys have going on in this community is awesome, because we literally were going through it and I was like, this is pretty much everything we do, except I've pieced it together over the last 4 years, piece by piece, and it's all here in one location. There were a couple of things that I was like, actually, I've never tried that, and I haven't thought about that. So, especially like the borax thing and like that kind of stuff, I was like, that's really cool. We might need to look into this and give this a shot and see if this makes a difference for us. So
yeah, I think Ken Berry's Daily Minerals have a bit of borax in them, so he's already on that wagon, as far as I know.
Yeah. The borax, when I speak to people about it, here locally, I mean, I have one story where literally an older guy who was a retired stonemason, but a traditional stonemason. So he spent 40 years literally, hitting stone. And for 10 years, he hadn't actually been able to use his hands properly. So every morning he would wake up and he'd have to hold his hands in hot water before he could move his knuckles and his muscles. And I suggested he try borax, and he literally. So the way we suggest people use it is 1 teaspoon in a liter of distilled water, and then you take a teaspoon of that every day to start with, because you go anyway. So I explained this to him, and 3 days later, he came running back over to me and went, look, and he hadn't actually told me what the matter was before that. And he said, look, I haven't been able to do this for nearly 10 years without massaging and warming them up and whatever. 3 days with the borax, and it was pretty much all gone. And the only thing that was still bothering him was where with one of his mallets, he'd actually literally crushed one of his knuckles. That was the only thing in his fingers that was still bothering him after just 3 days on borax. It can be miraculous for some people very quickly. So yeah, worth a try.
Doing is awesome.
Yes.
We have got 2 more questions, guys. So Helen says, has Chris ever made a recipe for a smoothie?
Interesting question. So I don't tend to do a lot of smoothies because blending meat up into a smoothie to drink doesn't work very well, and that's mostly what I do is carnivore stuff. But so I do stuff with keto chow and also with the salty electrolytes that they have, which are very easy for us to get over here. And I love their product, but regardless of what kind of electrolytes or anything you use, I find that that's a great place to have something special occasionally where you're using your electrolytes if you want to include something like that. So I'm actually starting a keto mocktails series, and whether someone wants to add alcohol to it or not is up to them. But I'm doing a keto mocktail series using the salty electrolytes, but it'll be some cool ideas that anyone who wants to do some of this kind of stuff, you can take it and use some of these same kinds of things if you want a little treat, and you can blend them, make like frozen style drinks or smoothies. You can put them over the rocks if you like something like that. And I'm doing like fruity tropical type stuff, using like no extract or like the extracts with no sugar and that kind of stuff, and then sweetened with stevia or allulose or whatever somebody wants to use. I'm going to be starting to do some of that kind of stuff. So I will have some more of that kind of stuff coming.
Amazing.
Awesome.
The next question is, how do you cook liver? And that's from Marie.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways. For me personally, I just like liver fried in butter. Just don't overcook it, and I think it's really, really great, salt and pepper. She hates liver, absolutely hates it.
No.
So I actually just did a Cajun video a couple of weeks ago with a keto jambalaya and a carnivore Cajun dirty rice. That Cajun dirty rice actually has a little bit of chicken liver in it. And she hates liver. She actually ate that dirty rice and she couldn't taste it was in there. And she said, this is really good. I can actually eat liver this way.
I ate like a bowl of it before he told me there was liver in it. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But it was really the taste of it. I couldn't taste it in there. So I was shoving it in, man.
Yep. Something like that, where it's sort of blended in and included and covered up with other meats and different flavors and stuff. That's a real easy way to try to incorporate it, and you can sort of increase the amount over time as your taste buds sort of become more acclimated to it. I also soaked that liver in half heavy whipping cream and half water, and so when you soak it in dairy like that with a pinch of salt in there, it because of the transfer of the salinity across the cell wall, it causes this reaction in liver where it pulls out some of those flavor compounds that are very metallic and livery. It makes it much more mild. So that's a great way to help with that.
Lovely. We also have Aurea saying, do you have a liver pate recipe?
I don't yet, but that's actually definitely on the list of things to work with. I just got, this has been actually a couple of months ago, but I haven't gotten to use them yet. But Tammy's to like take meat pate type stuff and pass through to get like a really smooth texture. And so it's something I didn't have in my kitchen, which is rare that I have a kitchen tool I don't have. But that was one that I was like, I really need to get this so that I can do some more refined things with like meat pates and like mousses and that kind of stuff, because that can lead us a whole new direction. And liver pate would definitely be a good one to pass through that to get a nice smooth texture and see what we can do.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, liver pate is the only way I can eat liver.
Lovely.
Right.
Oh, so just
Hello?
Helen, who had asked the question about smoothies, said because it's the only way I eat eggs, but she
Oh,
adds
yeah.
avocado. So I'm sure she'll look forward to your recipes when they arrive.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
super cool.
Very good. Well, guys, thank you so much for spending an hour and a half with us. Everybody who was here, thanks for joining us. And we'll see all of the audience next month. And we will be watching Chris and Ash from now on.
And having you back
Thank you.
soon, hopefully. Thank you,
And have
guys.
you back, yes. Yeah.
We would love that, and we just appreciate y'all so much.
Yes, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
No, Wyoming, still don't know why I left. In Georgia, left me for some girl out west. And things were always rocky with Colorado. And damn if I think twice about Ohio. And I don't miss Mississippi, nothing new in New Orleans. California keeps calling, and Tennessee misses me. No, I've never had a problem leaving. I could always just move on. Oh, but this time I'm stuck. Yeah, I'm stuck on Indiana. They say you can't put a rock on a rolling stone, but this boy makes me feel like I'm finally home. And I've gone round and round like a race car track, but he's the only thing that keeps me coming back. And I don't miss Mississippi, nothing new in New Orleans. California keeps calling, and Tennessee misses me. No, I've never had a problem leaving. I could always just move on. Oh, but this time I'm stuck. Yeah, I'm stuck on Indiana. I'm stuck on Indiana. He makes me wanna put down some roots and buy some land, put a ring on my hand. And I don't miss Mississippi, nothing new in New Orleans. California keeps calling, and Tennessee misses me. No, I've never had a problem leaving. I could always just move on. Oh, but this time I'm stuck. Yeah, I'm stuck on Indiana. I'm stuck on Indiana.